A millionaire patient pretends to be in a coma, but when he hears his nurse's confession, the steady beep of the heart monitor echoed in the private hospital room, a slow, rhythmic reminder that life was still present. Outside, the hallway bustled with the typical noises of nurses exchanging shifts and trolleys passing by, but inside the room, silence wrapped around everything like a thin blanket. Ethan Ross lay motionless on the pristine hospital bed, eyes shut, body still. To anyone who entered the room, he looked like a man fighting for his life. But Ethan wasn't in a coma. He wasn't even asleep. He was pretending. Ethan Ross, billionaire tech founder, philanthropist, and a man who once believed he didn't need anyone, had chosen to disappear from the world for a short time. Not because he was sick, but because his life had spiraled into a loneliness he could no longer ignore. Money had brought him success. Fame had brought him influence. But none of it brought him the peace he craved. He needed to see the world without it seeing him back. So when a minor accident at the airport left him with a mild concussion, Ethan took the opportunity. He requested complete privacy, told the doctors he wanted only the assigned nurse entering his room, and allowed the rumor to spread among his staff that he had slipped into a coma. In truth, he wanted silence. He wanted to hear what was spoken around him when people thought he wasn't listening. He wanted to know if anyone in his life truly cared beyond his money. That was when Nurse Liana entered his life. She stepped into his room on her first shift, holding a chart and wearing a tired smile that somehow looked genuine despite the exhaustion beneath it. Her chestnut hair was tied into a messy bun, loose strands refusing to obey gravity. Her soft voice greeted him every morning and every night, even though she assumed he couldn't hear. "Good morning, Mr. Ross," she whispered as she adjusted his blanket during her first visit. "I'll be taking care of you." No one had spoken to Ethan that gently in years. Days passed, and Ethan listened to the world through the voice of a woman who didn't know she had an audience. She hummed when she cleaned the room, apologized when she bumped into something, and told him about the weather outside as she checked his vitals. Then came something he hadn't expected. She talked to him. "You probably don't know what's happening around you," she said one evening while checking his 4-line, "but I hope you come back to the world soon, not because you're famous, but because no life should be wasted staying silent." Ethan's heart felt tight. Nurses in his life had always kept their distance, maintaining a firm professional boundary. But Liana was different. She treated him like a human being, not a billionaire. Every day she shared a little more of her life, her struggles, her dreams, and her pain. And Ethan, who hadn't listened to anyone in years, listened to her. One night when the hospital lights dimmed and the corridor settled into a rare stillness, Liana placed a chair beside his bed and sighed deeply. "This was a hard day," she murmured. "My sister's therapy bills increased again. I'm working double shifts to catch up." Ethan felt a sting in his chest. He wished he could open his eyes, sit up, and tell her he could pay every bill she ever had to worry about. But he stayed still because breaking character meant ending something he wasn't ready to lose. Over the next week, she told him about her family. Her mother, who had passed away too young, her little sister Mia, who had survived a traumatic accident, her father, who had walked out on them years ago. "You know," she whispered once, brushing a small lock of hair from Ethan's forehead, "sometimes I wonder if anyone would notice if I disappeared. I take care of everyone, but no one takes care of me." Ethan's heart cracked at her words. He wanted to tell her he noticed, he cared. He heard every word she spoke, but he remained silent, his eyes closed. People visited occasionally, his business partners, lawyers, assistants. They didn't talk to him, they talked about him. What will happen to the company if he doesn't wake up? We need him conscious before the merger. This delay is costing us millions. Not one of them asked how he was feeling. Not one of them expressed love, worry, or fear of losing him. They saw him as a brand, a machine, a wallet. All except Liana. One rainy night, when thunder rumbled faintly and the city lights blurred behind streaks of water on the window, Liana entered the room with unusually quiet footsteps. Ethan sensed something was different. She stood beside him for a long moment before finally speaking. "Mr. Ross, I need to tell you something," she said with a shaky breath. Ethan's heart sped up, though he kept his breathing steady. "I shouldn't. This isn't professional," she said, laughing weakly. "But talking to you these past 2 weeks, it feels like the only time I'm not drowning." She placed her hand over his. Ethan almost reacted. "I feel like you're listening even though you're not. I feel safe talking to you." A tear dropped onto his hand. "I don't know why I'm telling you this," she whispered, wiping her face. "Maybe because I know you can't judge me. Maybe because it feels nice pretending someone cares. But," her voice cracked, "I'm tired of being alone." Silence thickened the air. Then she said the words that shattered Ethan entirely. "I wish someone like you were awake and in my life. Someone I could trust. Someone who would see me." Ethan's breath hitched. He had never wanted to move more, to speak more, to be more. But he couldn't. Not yet. She deserved honesty, not a sudden confession from a man she barely knew. The next morning, Liana was quieter. Her smile was softer, her hands a little colder. Something was troubling her, and Ethan could feel it. During the afternoon check, she finally murmured, "They said your condition is worsening." Ethan was taken aback. He was perfectly healthy. Why would... And then it hit him. The doctors were being misled by his act. "The board wants to transfer you to a long-term care facility," she said, her voice trembling. Long-term? That meant he wouldn't see Liana again. He panicked inside, his mind screaming. He couldn't let them take him away. That night, as she checked his monitors, her tears fell freely. "I don't want you to go," she whispered. "It feels ridiculous, but losing you, it feels like losing my only friend." That was it. He couldn't stay still anymore. When she turned her back to adjust the four-pole, Ethan did the unthinkable. He spoke. "Liana." She froze. Slowly, she turned around. Her eyes widened, her lips parted, her entire body shaking as she whispered, "Mr. Ross." Ethan opened his eyes. For the first time, he saw her clearly, the soft glow of the room framing her trembling figure, her eyes glistening with shock and confusion. "Yes," he said gently. "I'm awake. You were..." She covered her mouth, tears spilling down. "You were in a coma, how?" "I wasn't," he admitted softly. "I pretended." Her tears stopped suddenly, replaced by a hurt expression that pierced him like a blade. "You pretended?" she whispered. "All this time?" "I know it was wrong," he said quickly. "But I didn't do it to hurt anyone. I just needed to disappear. I needed silence. I needed to know who cared." Her eyes glistened. "And listening to me, my personal life, my pain, was that entertainment to you?" "No," he said, sitting up. "Liana, everything you said meant something to me. You don't understand. I've never felt more human than when you talked to me." She stepped back. "I trusted you," she said quietly. "I told you things I've never told anyone. And you were lying there, fully aware." Shame burned through him. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "but everything I heard, everything, made me want to be better. You made me want to wake up." Her breath hitched. "Why me?" "Because you cared when no one else did," Ethan said. "Because you talked to me like I mattered. Because your heart is the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed." She swallowed hard, her emotions spiraling between anger and disbelief. "What do you want from me now?" she asked, voice trembling. Ethan took a slow breath. "A chance," he said softly. "A chance to know you honestly. A chance to help you, to support you, to be in your life. If you'll let me..." Her eyes softened just slightly, though the hurt lingered. "I don't need your money," she whispered. "I know," he replied. "That's why I want you in my life." Silence stretched. Then, to Ethan's relief, he walked to the chair beside him and slowly sat down. "I don't know how to feel," she confessed honestly. A part of me wants to scream at you. Another part feels relieved you're actually here. Ethan gave a soft smile. I deserve the screaming part. She laughed weakly, despite herself. Yes, you do. Over the next hour, they talked. Really talked. Ethan told her everything. His loneliness, his burnout, his insecurities. And she listened, just as he'd listened to her. When visiting hours ended, she stood to leave. Tomorrow will be different, she said softly. Different good or different bad? Ethan asked nervously. Her smile held a warmth he had never seen before. Different real. For the first time in years, Ethan slept peacefully. Over the following days, news spread quickly. Ethan Ross had awakened. Cameras flocked to the hospital. Reporters camped outside. Lawyers and business partners filled his phone with messages. But Ethan wasn't the same man anymore. He didn't care about deals, deadlines, or stock values. He cared about one thing: Liana. He began walking again, gaining strength, and each day she visited his room, their bond intertwined in ways neither could ignore. She smiled more. He laughed more. And one afternoon, sitting on the hospital balcony together, he said the words that had lived in his heart since the night she confessed her loneliness to a man she thought couldn't hear. I want to be the person who notices if you disappear. Her eyes softened, tears shimmering. And I want you to be the person who sees me, she whispered. I see you, Ethan said, taking her hand gently. I saw you long before I opened my eyes. Months later, when Ethan had fully recovered and returned to his life, he didn't return alone. Liana walked beside him, not as his nurse, not as someone he pitied, but as the woman who saved him, without even knowing it. She taught him that love wasn't about grand gestures or wealth. It was about being present, listening, and choosing someone every single day. And Ethan chose her. Every morning, every night, and in every moment he had left in his life. Because sometimes, the person who talks to you when they think you can't hear becomes the one your heart hears forever.